Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to Arizona Good Business Radio, connecting leaders together to have conversations about building strong local communities through doing good business. I'm your host, Thomas Barr, Executive Director of Local First Arizona, a statewide organization advocating for and celebrating locally owned businesses. We are the largest local business coalition in North America and raise awareness of the benefits of building a strong local economy. Our hopes today are to inspire more companies to do good business by highlighting local businesses that are building a better Arizona. Today, I'm joined by two of my favorite people in Arizona. The first, Kimberly Roland, Director of Entrepreneur Programs with Better Business Bureau serving the Pacific Southwest. Kimberly is responsible for the design and implementation of entrepreneur programming at BBB, including the development of new services for both accredited businesses and small business startups. Her newest exciting thing, she recently directed the build-out and launch of Ignite, sparked by BBB, a community co-working and collaboration space in Central Phoenix. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And then my second favorite person, of course, Katelyn Lange, Leadership Search Specialist for Y Scouts. Y Scouts helps leaders hire on purpose so their businesses have the greatest positive impact. Let me list all the cool things Katelyn does. She's a philanthropist serving as advocacy committee co-chair for African American Women's Giving and Empowerment Circle, civic engagement chair with the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals, and current diversity and inclusion director with Net Impact Phoenix Professionals. Hey, Katelyn.
Hi, excited to be here.
Awesome. So, welcome to both of you. We were just talking before about all of the interconnectedness that we have within our lives, but I'd love to hear from each of you just a little bit about your backgrounds. Kimberly, let's start with you. Who are you? Where are you from?
Oh, okay. So I'm Kimberly Roland. I'm a native Phoenician. I know there are not a lot of us.
I'm here.
You're
right here.
You're right there.
Yeah.
I know. There's a few of us. That's why I said there's not a lot of us. Born at St. Joe's Hospital, if you wanted me to take
too.
it all the way back. Were you really?
Yeah. What year?
No, that is too weird. We have a lot of...
So I'll tell you this much. I have met one other person in my life that was born at St. Joe's on the same day in the same hospital. Like completely same year, everything.
Way.
Yeah. It was in the checkout line of I think it was Sprouts.
That's how much you talk at Sprouts?
On 27th and Indian School, like 3 years ago. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's where I was born. I mean, in case anyone cares. And I've lived, I was raised mainly in Peoria, so the Northwest Valley, and then I've lived my adult life right in Central Phoenix. I left Arizona for college, and I moved to South Bend, Indiana, and then I lived in Rome for a year, which was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I came back upon graduating college. I worked for Feeding America in Chicago, and that brought me back here to St. Mary's Food Bank Alliance in Phoenix, and I worked there for several years. And then I also started grad school at ASU on the West Campus. I did graduate work in social justice and human rights. And then I actually worked in entrepreneurship at ASU, and that's kind of when the doors really opened to me for entrepreneurship and small business. And I worked at SkySong for several years. And then 2 years ago exactly, I moved to Better Business Bureau. And actually, exactly today is my anniversary now that I think about it. Yeah, so 2 years, thank you. And so then that's like this whole weird triangle between the three of us. Yes, because you connected me via Y Scouts before you worked there, but to marry Margaret for my position at BBB because Brian Moore, the co-founder of Y Scouts, has been on our board of directors for 10 years. And he has a really good connection here at Max 6 and with Conscious Capitalism. Yep. So super small world, getting smaller. And then right around when I started at BBB, right when I started is when I joined the YNPN Young Nonprofit Professional Network board of directors after Thomas was rolling off from being the president. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
get it right.
I know.
No.
I was executive director, president. I'm sorry, I have too many titles, Thomas. So yeah, so that's kind of the history of my life in a nutshell. Obviously, the most exciting being that I was born at St. Joe's.
Yeah. Which nurse? No.
Right.
Well, I want to hear more about Ignite later and everything you're doing there. But
sure.
Katelyn, let's hear about your background. You are not a Phoenix native. You're recent to Phoenix.
Yes, I'm from the Dairy State in Wisconsin.
Ooh.
I was born at St. Luke's. It's still a Saint, though.
Yes.
But graduated with my degree in psychology. At the time, wasn't familiar with the business aspects of psychology. So I started on the clinical side, working in inpatient mental health and addiction. So I did that for 3 years. My dad has actually been out here for probably about 15. So I relocated out here to be closer to him and to do a career change. Found myself at the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, doing workforce development and economic development with them. And that really ignited this love for connecting people to job opportunities and careers and that step up. So I found myself familiar with the B Corp movement, benefit corporations from an internship that I did in Oakland with an organization called Net Impact. And that's why I'm involved with the local chapter here. That was focused on me finding speakers for the annual conference. So that got me introduced to the B Corp movement. When I got back to Phoenix and got that job at the chamber, I looked up all the B Corps in Arizona. A small list, but saw Y Scouts on there.
But there's like 9 of us.
Yeah, it's growing. So I was familiar with Y Scouts. Loved my work in workforce development and saw Y Scouts as the next step to actually doing hiring and sourcing candidates and finding them that candidates that align based on values and fulfillment to roles. So that's why I made the move to Y Scouts, and it's been a great journey so far.
And for those that don't know what a B Corp or benefit corporation is, explain that a little bit.
Sure. So there gets very complicated with the legal entity versus B Corp, which is the group B Lab, who has a standards test that you can put your business through and get that designation, but it's also a legal entity in Arizona. So just business as a force for good. Companies that are saying, hey, we're going to draw a bar here and we're going to elevate how we treat our employees, how we handle governance, how we look at our commitment to all stakeholders, not just shareholders.
And so any business can be a benefit corporation if they want to.
Yes.
In Arizona, at least. Okay. But how many? We have like less than a dozen.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so really it's like, I register my business as an LLC. I can register my business as a B Corp. Is that how it works?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So why might it be that we don't have a big, I know we all know lots of great, good business. Why is it that we're not seeing a bunch of businesses do that?
I think it's just getting the word out. I think with any movement, it's really that grassroots outreach. And I think it's great that there are some bigger name companies like Patagonia, like Ben & Jerry's, who are kind of carrying that B Corp torch. And then here locally, like Goodman's, I know Adam Goodman speaks on it often. And I think Local First is such a great organization to help get the word out even more. And at the Good Business Summit last year, or it was this year, at the beginning of this year with Kim.
I keep saying last year, and it was like 6 months ago, yeah.
Longest year ever.
Yeah, with the founder of New Belgium. They are a B Corp. So I think that was great to get the word out in the community as well.
Cool. Awesome. And I'm glad you brought up the Business Summit. So you both met for the first time today, but as we were talking before, have all these weird connections. You both were moderators at the Business Summit and still didn't even meet there.
That's right. Because I feel like our session was at the same time or in different rooms,
like at the same
afternoon. Yeah. Okay.
The afternoon.
We've literally been dancing around each other. We've been in the same places many times and have not met until today. It's very unlikely.
Yeah. And on Twitter.
Right.
And on Twitter. Yes. I just tag you guys in things all the time.
You do.
So I met Katelyn last year. There was a group of people Katelyn actually brought together with the founder of Local First, Kimberly Roland, to attend a conference in California that was bridged and connected to a local group they were working on here for a workshop called Transform Finance, which I'm going to ask you about in a little bit. But we all met there, a bunch of people working in social justice issues and grassroots groups, trying to bring together the community to focus on a lot of different issues. But we started getting connected and things like that. And I realized how well connected she was both to the business community and the local community here. And, Kimberly, you and I have known each other for a while. But what is it? What's going on with BBB these days? Talk to us a little bit. I mean, it's been around. How long has it been around?
Yeah, so this is our 81st year in Arizona, and the BBB has been around for over 100 years in the United States. It was founded in the early 1900s by some Coca-Cola advertising executives, actually. So it was more of an advertising movement for self-regulation in the business sector to help regulate businesses so that they were advertising fairly and accurately to consumers. So that's kind of how BBB started. A lot of people think that we are a government agency because we have bureau in our title, but we're not. We are a 501c6 and we also are a C3. But we've been in Arizona for over 80 years. And last year we merged with the San Diego Better Business Bureau. So now we serve the entire Pacific Southwest,
Cool.
which is awesome. We have a really large membership base. I believe we're the largest trade association in Arizona. And our members are historically from a lot of trades, a lot of businesses in the various trades. However, increasingly, we have professional services, solopreneurs, folks like that are joining for a variety of reasons. I think it's a little similar to B Corp because there are all of our standards of trust that a company has to adhere to, and we vet them against in order to become accredited by the BBB. And then they can enjoy the benefits of membership. So anyhow, I was hired 2 years ago because we had recently moved from 12th Street in Highland to 12th Street, essentially, in Missouri. So like less than a mile.
That's not very far.
Not very far. But I've heard that it made the world of difference because before I worked for BBB, that old location was really tiny. And I mean, people were literally like sitting practically on top of each other.
Yep.
And so we needed a bigger space for our staff, but also we had this vision to better start serving the business community because we've always been thought of, again, as kind of a consumer advocacy organization, which is kind of true, kind of not true because we're very neutral between businesses and consumers. So anyhow, we wanted to have a business center where we could convene business leaders, give them resources so that they can have events. So we moved to this campus right there on Missouri that actually used to belong to McMurray Publishing. That was a well-known business for many decades in the Valley. In that transaction, we bought 3 buildings. One of them, there was always the intent to turn into a co-working space. So that's why I was hired. And I was really excited by that because the building, it's not huge. It's 5,000 square feet, but it has a lot of potential. When I did the interview 2 years ago, the first interview I did was with Y Scouts before I could even find out who the company was. So that's what was really interesting about the Y Scouts. The whole process was I met with them first. I got to see a job application or description, and then I learned it was the BBB. And I was like, okay, kind of scratching my head thinking this is kind of like an older brand. I don't really understand what they're doing in innovation. Why is there going to be a director of entrepreneur programs? And then I went and saw the campus and I met our CEO and it all really clicked. I was like, okay, I get the future vision here. I get the iteration of the brand for this century of really kind of embracing who our members are, business owners. We need to serve that community and give them the resources that they're asking for. So I fell in love and then I've just been working and really hustling the last 2 years to get this co-working space open. It turns out it's a ton of work to open a co-working space. You need a lot of furniture, like a lot. Wow. So we've gotten to work with Goodman's. We've worked with a ton of businesses and we've really become very, as nonprofits are, very scrappy and resourceful in using some of the things we had, painting ourselves, doing a lot of the maintenance ourselves, bringing in volunteer groups from GCU to help do some of the cleaning to get the space open. So I'm really proud of how the space turned out. I think it's definitely unlike any other co-working space in the Valley. We don't really have any private space. It's open concept. It's collaborative. It's really bright on the inside. It's not a huge space again. So we refer people a lot of times here to Max 6 or to Workuity or Hera Hub, any of the locally owned co-working spaces when people are looking for a private suite. So we just did the ribbon cutting and grand opening 2 weeks ago. And so I'm like, I feel like I can breathe, but I also feel like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really exciting. And we're really proud to have the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as our anchor partner in this space.
Nice.
And so yeah, with them, they bring the Minority Business Development Agency and just a slew of resources. And we have, crossover in our membership. So we love AZHCC. And I think they really enjoy being in the space as well. So it's been really fun. It's been super exciting and just a ton of hard work. But it's really cool to see when you're working on a physical project like that, it's really cool to see your hard work actually pay off. You know what I mean? Like you see the before and the after, and it's awesome.
That's cool. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
opening. That's really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
So, Katelyn, that Y Scouts process sounds very secretive.
It is. We call it covert. Covert approach.
Really? Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. What is it like
Internal.
for you guys, you all, and what is it like for a candidate? And how do you find good people?
So the majority of sourcing once we sign on a client and get a role is through LinkedIn, through personal networks as well, but vast majority is through LinkedIn. So we spend a lot of time with our clients up front, getting to know what success they're really looking for this person to drive. And like in Kimberly's situation, it's great because we have a lot of opportunities for people who want to build. Find the people on LinkedIn. I reach out to them, maybe with a title, maybe with a few, like here's some keywords in the mission and what they're all about and what they're looking to do, but not specifics about the company. Get a reply, schedule a call, and then we really center it around the human before the resume. So we really spend our time asking them, like, I'm going to share specifics, but I'd love to know what you really enjoy in your work. What do you enjoy throughout your career? What gives you the most energy? If you could design an ideal role, what would it look like? Before giving those specifics, so people aren't trying to fit into a job description, and you really have that space for an authentic conversation and a connection. And I think even if it isn't the right role or at the right time, you've already kind of invested a bit in that person. I think it's helpful to talk through that. And sometimes people will say, oh, I've never said this out loud, but my ideal role would be this, or I want to do this. So that's what we call our covert approach. After we have that conversation, we share more details and then would move forward from there.
That's cool. Is that part of your like benefit corporation? Like,
I don't think it directly ties to the benefit corporation status, but I think it's more lessons learned from our co-founders, Brian and Max, on how to add a unique value to the typical and how to redo the typical recruitment process.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I jump in? So why don't you tell the name of the business?
I think because there's everybody has Google and there's a lot you can find. Yeah. So then the person can find the mission, find the values if they're up there, and really kind of tell me you're already like, everybody wants a job, even if you know it's not the job for you. Not everybody, but a lot of times you still want to be chosen and then have that choice. So it's just so we have that space to actually hear what's important to you. And I'm actually surprised all the time at how much it aligns when I'm just hearing this person what's important to them, and then I'm thinking through the opportunity that we have and how many things intersect and are aligned. It's really crazy.
Yeah. So what sets you apart from another recruitment type company that's looking to fill spaces in executive roles or things like that?
Yeah, I would say the first thing, and we say, like, we don't do placements. We align leaders and work. So I think, one, our covert discovery process. I think, two, we have our own leadership philosophy that's focused on the best leaders that we find have three things in common. They learn relentlessly, they develop others, and they drive results. So we screen for those things as well. And I think just our B Corp status, our commitment to our mission to help place people and connect them to work that matters is really the guiding star for how we move forward in terms of from a business sense.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So what makes Y Scouts a benefit corporation?
So that's a good question. I think it's something that we're continuing to evolve with. And I think that's something that I'm passionate about is there's always room for improvement. So we took a standards test that B Lab. It's a company, I think they're based in Pennsylvania. And one of the co-founders, actually, do you remember the brand And One? From back in the day, the clothing brand.
The basketball? Was it basketball?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like my funny whole closet. Slogans.
Yeah.
So he is actually a co-founder of that before B Lab. So I thought that was neat.
Do you know what And One means?
Like basketball?
Oh, you make it and then
it's
you get a foul?
And one.
Yeah, like, you get a 3-point play.
Yeah, there you go.
We know basketball, Thomas. Did you play basketball?
I just didn't know who knows. Yeah, I played basketball.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of And Ones?
You know, I mostly would my phrase would be Kobe.
No.
I still do it when I'm throwing things into the trash.
Why Kobe? Why not Steve Nash?
It could be Nash too, but Kobe's got that like cool, like, it's Kobe.
I'm shaking my head. Not Kobe.
But the founder of And One
started now
involved.
B Lab.
Wow, that's
He's
crazy.
a co-founder of B Lab.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So there is a standard test that they put out. You have to score, I think, an 80 and above. So we've taken that and scored at 80 or above to get that designation. And I haven't taken the assessment, but it is around governance and how you treat your workers.
Yeah.
But I think there's always opportunities, and B Corp does a great job of having like inclusion challenges and different challenges for B Corps to see how they can move even further.
So B Lab and B Corp are two different things.
B Lab and the standardization that they have can make you a B Corp.
Okay.
A benefit corporation is separate, and that's a legal entity that state by state has chosen whether to honor that or not. And Arizona is a state that has that option.
So if your state doesn't have that option, you could take the B Lab assessment and like be certified like B Lab, but not officially register your business as a benefit corporation.
I believe so. I think there is a push, though, when you do get the B Lab certification to add that component in, but I'm sure there would be some sort of flexibility if the state doesn't offer it.
Got it. That's really
And
cool.
they are international as well.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Do you have to reapply every year? Is there like a vetting process?
I don't think it's annual. It might be every 5. I'd have to check that. But there are times where you have to redo it. And I've heard it can be a heavy lift. So I think there are groups that can help people through that process.
We are trying to get more into that at Local First. We did it at a time where we made the assessment available through Local First Arizona. And we had some businesses go through it. And like you can go to the Benefit Corporation website where they have a list of every business that's a benefit corporation that exists.
That's
and what you're supposed to do, I don't know if you're supposed to do it, but like if you go to New Belgium's website, they have their ranking. So you take the assessment and you get ranked from like 0 to 100 and everything. And you have to be like at least an 85 on all of their measurables. And it shows like employee treatment, like community engagement, like whatever the measurables are. You could see where each business lands. It's kind of cool. Yeah. So what type of businesses are getting involved in Better Business Bureau these days? Like, and not that I, know your organization that well or know what type of business might join, but I think historically we think of BBB and we think of people that want to have that sticker on their door to make sure people know that they're a good business, I guess. Like how have things evolved and changed, and what type of businesses are you seeing now that want to be accredited or involved with your organization?
Yeah, that's a good question, because historically, you're right, it has been folks in the trades. So HVAC, plumbing, roofing, landscaping, automotive. And so it's really important for them because especially in Arizona with HVAC, right? Let's take that as an example. There's thousands of companies. And so what is a way to stand out? First of all, a lot of these businesses, you're going into people's homes too. So that's a very personal business decision when you as the consumer has to decide, who do I trust to come into my house? And so I think that's why we've historically seen those types of businesses join the BBB, because it's a whole additional layer or level of vetting to show that you adhere to the various standards of trust. So safeguarding people's privacy, honestly advertising to them, doing what you say you're going to do as a company. So it adds kind of this security layer, hopefully for the consumer, that, hey, I know that this company has been checked out, they're licensed, they're bonded. We have to check to make sure that they have the proper insurance before they are accredited. And so I think as a consumer, it gives you somewhat peace of mind to know, okay, this company has had this additional layer of vetting. So that's who we normally see. And the business owners themselves, they love it because they do want to be able to display that on their website in an interactive way to show their live ranking, kind of like what you said, Thomas, where ours is a letter grade ranking and it's a nationally set algorithm. You have to keep a B or above in order to remain accredited with the BBB. There's a lot of companies too that may not necessarily be accredited by us, but they still have earned an A+ rating because they're doing business the right way. But maybe they just don't necessarily value joining the BBB because they don't care about the seal or any of the benefits. But you get that in any type of business association. So our members really do love to be able to, especially those in the trades, love to be able to put it on their uniforms, on their websites, on their vehicles. And since I've been there, we've noticed, as I mentioned before, an increase in professional services and solopreneurs and folks who are wanting to gain access to the physical resources we have on our campus.
Yeah.
So we have a good amount of attorneys, some chiropractors, dentists, doctors, lawyers, joining. A lot of them, again, solopreneurs or very small business, 10 employees or less, because they love using our business and community center where you can have meetings, host events, do interviews, have board meetings, do trainings. So that's a huge resource. And it just kind of like the B Corp, what you were saying, it aligns folks around different values. So the main values at the heart of the BBB are ethics, integrity, and trust in doing business. And you would think or hope that most businesses would care about those things, but it's not at the top of their value system. But most of our members, it is. And so that's kind of cool when you can convene people who are like-minded around something that I think is really important, ethics especially. in the business sector and kind of bring them into one space. So yeah, we see a whole ton of different types of business. We have in our internal database thousands of different ways to tag TOB type of business because it can get so specific, like especially in the automotive industry. Is this an auto body shop? Are they transmission? Are they only tires? Is it only brakes? I mean, there's like, you can go crazy on the internal side again to notate the type of business there is. I see the emails that come through nationally because that's kind of set at the national level, and they'll do updates every week or two. And like even yoga studios recently, there's like 10 different types of yoga studios we can like track. Is it a hot yoga studio? Like it's nutty. It's really cool though to see, and you like visualize, wow, there's so many types of businesses out there. And we've even seen some folks, in the tech sector, they'll join the BBB, actually a good amount. So WebPT is one of our members. They won a torch award.
Cool.
Yeah, they won a torch award for ethics a few years ago from us. We have some like drone companies that have joined recently, like drone and aerial photography. So it really varies. And it is so interesting to always know. We always ask our members, why did you join? And almost, I would say 90% of the time, the sentence they give us has to do with, I like the vetting. I like to be able to show that I'm a trustworthy business. I like to be able to show my customers that I'm doing business ethically. So that's what's really important. And it's really interesting because I think it's more important now than ever to show and take a stance like I'm an ethical business. I'm going to treat my customers fairly, because there are so many places online where it's kind of hard to decipher consumer reviews, right? So it's nice to be able to have a pretty neutral organization like the BBB, who's been around forever and who has vetted these businesses and can give you a pretty fact-based approach to know, hey, is this the right decision I'm making? So I like it. It's really awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really different to what like most people might think a typical business might be.
Yes.
That's involved.
Oh, yeah, totally. And it's funny, probably once you talk to me or, once I started at BBB, I'm like, I see our seal everywhere. Like SurveyMonkey, so depending on where a company is headquartered, that's where they will join that local BBB. So SurveyMonkey's in the Bay Area. But I was designing a survey the other day, and at the bottom, they have our seal. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. So there are big corporations too that will join the BBB, and that's oftentimes very much out of a sense of corporate social responsibility. I've heard our CEO give a really good analogy before. It's kind of like the PBS or NPR model. It's, yes, you get benefits for joining, and it's very helpful for your customers and for your brand, but you're also buying into kind of a mindset and a value system of, I care about this, and so I'm going to really join it and be part of this cause. So yeah, I like it. It's really important.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So question for both of you. In this age of transparency in business, where we're seeing more and more people wanting to know how businesses feel about certain things, and not only consumers, but employees, we want to work for companies that are transparent and honest and reliable and values aligned with us. What are you seeing in business these days in the sectors you work within, of maybe new things that are happening or businesses that are doing really cool proactive things to show transparency, whether it's through the hiring process or through attracting customers? What types of things are you guys seeing out there?
So I think in our Y Scouts process, so we have what you would traditionally think is a job description. We call it an opportunity profile, and it looks a lot different. And it's really a marketing piece for the client and the employer to show more of their culture and their values and what behaviors are rewarded. But there's a piece in there where we send out a survey anonymously to employees to get a sense of what the culture is like. If the company disappeared, what would the world miss? Is risk-taking allowed? What type of behaviors are valued? Like, give us an idea of how your core values are, your core values in action. So cool. We have this anonymous feedback, and we put that into the profile so that candidates get a more transparent look at the company environment as it is then.
Like, this is what people that work there are saying, kind of a thing. That's cool.
That's really cool.
And sometimes there are things that are a bit harsh. I think the most common thing is we need better communication, which you can see across all businesses.
Every business,
like, that's the problem we're all trying to solve. But there's things, risk taking, I don't feel that it is rewarded, or I think it depends on the level or what role that you have, or it's a bit hierarchical, or management. How is leadership? We asked about leadership. Oh, they're a bit scattered. So we like to put those things in there because the right person is going to think, okay, that's a challenge. I've done that. I can do that, or it's not going to be daunting. And if it is, then that person will be able to self-select out as well.
That's cool.
I think that's really interesting. I like that. And I think it's important because especially millennials and younger, I think really look into what the culture is. I feel like we've been inundated with learning and seeing Google and Facebook and these amazing cultures where there's like ping pong tables and stuff. And so now I feel like it's being subtly or maybe not so subtly ingrained in our mind. Like you need to find someplace fun and cool to work. So I can speak to my experience the last 2 years at BBB. Again, one of the things that surprised me, and just now that I understand the process at Y Scouts a little bit better, I am grateful that they didn't tell me right out the gates that it was BBB, because I had this kind of bias against, that's an older company, I don't really see. And then I saw it for myself in person, and I was like, wow, I saw how diverse our staff is. I saw the beautiful campus, and I saw the culture, and I was really grateful that I kind of organically got to experience that. But at BBB, I think we have two directors of people and culture, and they've done a really good job of intentionally creating a culture and environment where you're like, wow, I can't believe this is a nonprofit organization. Like there's some really thoughtful benefits that have been added. And I think that's why we see pretty low turnover and a lot of employees that have been there for 10, 15. We have one employee that just celebrated her 25th anniversary and one that's been there for 45 years at our BBB here in Phoenix. And so some of the cool benefits, one is a really cool maternal policy. So if you have a kid, you can bring the baby into the office until they can crawl or walk. So like for the first 6 or 8 months. So that's really fun. And it's not just like bring your baby and they're left on their own, but like in our Phoenix office in the different buildings, we have like toys and like the bouncy things and the little, I'm not a parent, so I'm like, I can't like the little thing that they can sit in that vibrates. And then you have to actually work with your supervisor and your colleagues, and you have to designate 2 or 3 colleagues who can care for your baby if you're in a meeting, stuff like that. So I thought, wow, that's like a super cool policy. We have a nursing room for moms. We have a Zen den for people, which a lot of our employees take advantage of in like 30-minute increments if you have a headache, if you're feeling really stressed. So I think those are some of the kind of cool policies. And we also allow, even though we ourselves are a nonprofit, we allow for any of our employees to volunteer 4 days a year, so once a quarter, paid for a full day at any charity of your choice. And then, of course, people always love like the food perks, which you can't get around that. So we have a really cool snack closet, and we feed our staff either like a light breakfast or like a full lunch, usually once a week or every other week. Cool. So there's some really cool perks there, and just like little touches, even like, even though it doesn't rain that much here, we have like really nice golf umbrellas at every exit or entrance of all of our buildings. So when it does rain and you're walking between buildings, you can take an umbrella. So just little things like that.
I just use it for the sun.
I know. This time of year, I saw someone walking actually on my way here using an umbrella. I was like, that's so smart. So yeah, I think that's really important. And we participate in the top companies to work for, and we've won it the last 6 or 7 years.
Nice.
And that's an anonymous employee survey as well, where they're kind of gauging the feedback. And then above and beyond just perks and, good workplace benefits, I think another thing that is done really well at BBB is we have a monthly all-staff meeting, and our CEO goes over the financials with every employee, and we look at our profit and loss statement. We look at, everything very transparently. To go to your point of employees at every level want to know what's going on within the organization. So I think that's really neat. And we do that once a month. And then once a week for 10 minutes every Tuesday morning, we do an all-staff huddle where everyone just stands in a hallway and just hears the updates for the week. Like in my mind, I imagine that being like a briefing that you would have if you were in politics, like in DC or something. So it's kind of fun.
Exactly what it's like.
Right? Yeah. Like getting briefed. So I think that's really important. And I think that does distinguish, BBB from other organizations where I've worked, where it's just really thoughtful and kind of intentionally curated experiences for your staff.
I love all that. I mean, you brought up ping pong tables before and how that's how we're supposed to think of culture. But, Matt Clyde from Ideas Collide always says culture is not ping pong tables and beer kegs.
Right.
It's meaning, it's purpose, it's employers caring for their employees and showing that intentionality. So I think it's that feeling that employees will give, when you're asking the feedback. It's not, we have this really cool sports game in the break room.
Yeah. It is. It's so interesting because, I mean, I think some people do really like that, but it's one of those things where we have board games and sometimes we'll put them out on like Fridays and like not that many people play them. But when you do other things, it's always interesting to me like what people like or what they don't. Because we have a team committee and it's folks from all the different departments and they get together to plan the monthly meeting and pick the catering and whatever. And they do a great job of making a fun theme every month. So in March, it was March Madness. So our team committee president, he went out and bought one of those little basketball, like you would play at an arcade, but just kind of like a cheap one. And we put it outside in our alleyway and people were playing that for like the entire lunch period. And I was like, I was surprised that people were going to go outside and do that.
And one.
Right, and one. Exactly.
That's good. Way to
dunking on
Kobe.
each other. Yeah, right?
I'm coming by next Friday.
You should. We still have it. But like, so that's what I mean is like, it wasn't like a huge thing, but people loved it. I'm trying to think of other examples like that. But it's like little things where it's like, wow, that's really thoughtful. And like, it made it really fun because they did like a sports themed snack that week. And it's just like, it's stuff like that. Like I know this week we're going to pull out our barbecue and we do like a hot dog grill out for all of our staff. And it's just stuff like that people really like. And I think it's because it shows, you're not just like throwing, sometimes we do this. I mean, bagels or pizza out there, but like, you know what I mean? It's a little bit more thoughtful. And people appreciate that.
Do you mean bagel bites? No.
Oh my gosh, I wish we did bagel pizzas.
That's what you just described.
I know. I wish we don't have a kitchen to do that, but we do put out pizza and then sometimes we put out bagels.
Combine the two.
We should.
So I want to shift gears for a minute. And Katelyn, I want to talk about the work that you did over the last year working with Kimber on bringing the Transform Finance Group to Phoenix, because I think it's really cool and really unique. And Phoenix was chosen out of like, I don't know how many cities, but tell us about it. I know about it, but I know most people don't. So
yeah, so this is one of my favorite things about Phoenix is that if you want to see something here, you have the opportunity to build it. And it's been really easy for someone who didn't grow up here to really get involved at a deep level. So I got a notification, and this is when I was working at the chamber, that there was a group called Transform Finance. They're based in New York that was looking they put out an open call to cities to host their flagship training, which is a 2-day workshop for social justice leaders who are involved really at the grassroots level. And the training would provide them another lens to think about how to shift capital to the service of whatever cause they're working or community improvement project that they're working on. So I applied. This is kind of independent of my role at the chamber, but something that I'm interested in through my community work. So I nominated Phoenix, and they reached out to me. Oh, we also got another application from Kimber Lange. Do you know her? I'm like, I've talked to her briefly once, but we don't really know each other. That was at a conference. So he organized a call with the three of us. Kimber was open to working together with me on it. So we sent them ideas of different groups that should be included and ideas that we had and pressing issues that people are really working on here in regards to transportation, criminal justice reform, opportunity zones like everybody else.
Yeah.
Is talking about that and how to leverage that to actually benefit the communities that are there now. So we were selected along with, I believe, 3 other cities, 2 or 3, and they came in March. So Kimber and I worked together to plan that and had a really, you were there, Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
had a good showing, learned a lot about different capital funds and different options to get money moving. I think it was a good follow-up to our experience at the Conference for Business Alliance for Local Living Economies to hear what other cities are doing. We learned about community land trust. I think it was a great intro into the many different ways to try and shift capital, but it's going to be a lot of work to stand those things up. But I think it was a great coalition building for the people that participated. People came up from Tucson, people who are really dedicated and care about this. And I think those relationships will birth really great things moving forward.
I agree. Yeah. And I think that work is really important and interesting because you think about people that are really passionate and focused behind social justice issues and working in the community at grassroots levels. And when we think about capital and how it tends to be controlled, it's usually by those with financial backgrounds, right? And they're in there. And I mean, that's kind of how Wall Street was built, is very, very smart people that know financing, building a system that benefits their interests. When we look at all these needs in the community, helping those people working in the community have that knowledge too. And that was kind of the point behind Transform Finance, which I thought was really, really cool. So Kimberly, you have a big thought coming out of your face.
It just, that's just how my face looks, Thomas. No, it was making me think of your Twitter thread from this weekend, I think.
Which one?
Right. You'll have to be more specific. The one where somebody was like, every time I want to... Starbucks, the Starbucks one, where you're like, oh, okay. Someone was like, every time I feel like I need to go to Starbucks, I feel like I need to like confess to Thomas and Local First and like buy them local coffee. And then Thomas, instead of just, being like most people would be like, yeah, it's okay, like blessing you, whatever. He was like, actually, let me do a whole tweet thread. And it was awesome. I was reading it and you got like in there on like financing and banks, right?
Yeah.
Is that the same thread or is there just that
It was
many?
the same thread. So this certain individual, good friend, said, I always feel really bad when I find myself in Starbucks and I'm like, oh, why did I go here? I should have gone somewhere local. So sorry. What can I do to make it up to you? And I said, well, since you asked.
Yes, that's right. He did take advantage of it. See, if I ever go to Starbucks, which isn't often, I just don't tell Thomas because then I know I'm going to have to buy him something.
Well, now I know.
Now he's going to be on your shoulder,
right?
though.
No, he already is. Trust me. Catholic school guilt. Like, I know Thomas is like watching when I have that, like go through that drive-thru or whatever.
Just pay for the person behind you and you'll make yourself feel better. No, I made the point about local banking and how a lot of businesses can be conscious but don't have their money in banks that are values aligned with them. And so, where is the money really going? What businesses are we depositing our funds into that are supporting the same things that we believe in? Talking about benefit corporations, I mean, just in general, if you're a good business, if you're focused on community, if you're focused on your employees' well-being and everything, let's start with where we're putting our money when we're depositing it, right? And so that was one of the things I brought up for sure.
I love credit unions too, by the way.
Yeah, credit unions are awesome.
And I think that was a good learning that came out of our workshop is that Reina Montoya, who runs and founded an organization called Aliento, which is focused on DACA and youth affected by deportation, giving them healing through leadership development and arts. She was there and said that many of the local banks, it's hard for them to bank at because they don't...
They require certain documentation that, DACA student or person might not have. Yeah,
and the big banks offer you a photo on your credit card or your debit card, so then that can serve as an ID. So that was a great learning for us on how can we, welcome that. How can we make some changes to welcome that group into our local banks?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a really cool thing. Awesome. Well, what is new on the horizon for either of you? Anything coming up for either of your organizations or personally that we should be excited about?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm recently elected to the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professional Group, their civic engagement chair.
Nice.
So figuring out how to grow that voice and plug in there. I say that is the biggest thing, along with just working searches with Y Scouts.
Cool.
Let's see. I rolled off the YNPN board last month, and then I joined the Phoenix Chamber Valley Young Professionals board, which is where Thomas and I met. We figured that out recently.
Yeah, we did figure that out.
Yeah, when he was on the board. That's what I was thinking. See, I think I'm right. We need a diagram because I figured you two would have met when you were working there then. But you didn't.
I actually didn't know she worked there so the Valley Young Professionals Board of Directors sits underneath the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce organization, and I was on that board, but I didn't know you worked there. So, yeah.
So you never crossed paths?
No, we never.
At a YNPN event once, because I knew Chiquita Serpas.
Yeah, I knew Chiquita.
But we never connected or just two people.
Smallest big city.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I'm joining that board, and I'm also joining Suns Charities 88, which I'm
awesome.
Super stoked on because I'm lifelong huge Suns fan. Side fun fact about me, I was the youngest Phoenix Suns season ticket holder, at least up to that point. In high school, I worked 2 jobs one summer, and I got only half a season, but they still call you a 6th man season ticket holder. They're like nosebleeds, section 206. But I'm very proud of that fact because it was when the Suns were really good. It was the Stoudemire, Marion, Nash days. And I was my one claim to fame, which can be in my obituary one day, is I was there for the Raja Bell clotheslining of
way.
Kobe because I hate Kobe.
That was Kobe.
No.
I hate him so much.
What if he's listening?
I don't care. You know what?
send it
You
to
know what's
him.
cool about Kobe? He speaks Italian though,
I
so
didn't know that.
I can be cool with that. But so I'm really excited to be joining Sons Charities 88, and then
That's really cool.
yeah,
They do a lot of good work.
They do a ton for the community. It's a great organization. So I'm excited about that. And then we're working on starting a business incubator really geared towards folks in the trades. So I talked a little bit with Thomas about this last week, and we're just in the early process of building this with GoDaddy. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to create something that's intentionally geared towards folks who are oftentimes overlooked in other incubator programs. So it's going to be a ton of work, and I'm excited for it. And we're going to have tracks for women, business owners, veterans, and refugees who are starting up a business. So there's going to be a huge opportunity there for a lot of coalition building with organizations in town that are already doing that work and kind of trying to bring folks together so we can work harder, smarter, not harder, but together to have more impact. I think the thing that I hate the most is when you see duplication, because we are a huge city. And so I think it warrants sometimes that there's multiple services, but why are we competing when it's not that big of a city? I mean, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. That's kind of what's on the horizon. Can I give a plug for House of Genius?
Please do.
Okay. So House of Genius, it's my third year volunteering with House of Genius, the Phoenix chapter. It is also a nonprofit organization founded in the U.S., but there's chapters all around the world, and we're one of the most active chapters. So I've been volunteering with Katelyn Waters.
Cool.
A lot of people know her in the startup scene. Yes, PHX. She works for Reese's Dental. She's awesome. She's our city director, and we've been doing that for the last 3 years. Karen, we had as a panelist, and it's kind of like the Y Scouts hiring process because we don't give a ton of information to people, but it's a pitch event that happens once a month, the last Wednesday of the month downtown at Cityscape. And there's always 2 new startups that come and pitch. Last week was our June event, and we had 2 nonprofit geared startups. One of them is more in a tech kind of platform. Actually, both of them were, but they're geared towards nonprofits. So it's super cool. So you have 2 pitchers. They're not pitching for cash. They're pitching for feedback. And then you have a really cool boardroom, and we bring in panelists. And Katelyn and I are the only ones that know which panelists are coming in.
Cool.
And during the event, you give feedback to the 2 businesses, and there's a really nice keynote at the start. And then at the end, there's the reveal. So you can only have your first name, and you can't say where you work or what you do. So it kind of democratizes the conversation. So you have people who are fresh out of college. Sometimes we have high schoolers and people who are retired and into their like 4th retired career. And you can't say, because I was the CEO, this is why you should take my advice. Like, you can't undercut other people's advice at the table. So it's super cool. Anyways, we only have a few more House of Geniuses left for 2019 because we don't meet in November or December. So if you are interested in pitching, just again, for feedback and just really cool connections, because we bring different folks every month to the table. It's only a 1 evening commitment. You can check us out. Our Twitter is HofGAZ. And that's where there's like a super low-tech Google form that we have people sign up for.
Cool.
But it's a labor of love, and it's really cool. And Pulsinelli is our partner and sponsor locally. And it's just an awesome event to bring like nonprofit folks to the table, startups, all that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have fun. And where can people find you and BBB online?
Anywhere.
Okay.
Just by a simple
Look
search.
for the seal.
Well, yeah, look for our seal of trust. I'm trying to think of all of our different social media handles. At Ignite BBB is our newer handle, our Twitter for Ignite Sparked by BBB, the co-working space. And that account I'm proud of because we're sharing out a lot of stuff that the community is doing as a kind of a resource. So we'll share out when the Hispanic Chamber has events, when Seat Spot is doing events, when Local First is doing events. So that's a good one. And then you can find me on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Kimberly B. Roland.
Love it. Katelyn, how about you?
So just yscouts.com. It's just Y, the letter, not WHY, but just Y. And I am an avid Twitterer
As I know.
at Kate Harris Lange, and on LinkedIn as well. Love to connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here today. Love the conversation.
Thank you.
We hope you're inspired today by these local leaders that are redefining what it means to do good business. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Conscious Capitalism of Arizona, Max 6, Phoenix Business Radio X. This is Thomas Barr from Local First AZ, reminding you that if we want to build a better Arizona, we need to connect deeply with the local businesses that make us proud to call this place home.